Right. Good day, my crypto friends. It's a pleasure to see you today. We're here today with Saeed from EOS Cafe, Calgary, block producer for EOS, and we've got all kinds of interesting things we're going to talk about today. One of those is EOS Cafe building coffee shops around the world for people to meet up in and do cryptocurrency, everything else too. So check out the interview. How you doing today, Saeed?
Doing good. How are you?
It's another day in paradise. Like we were just saying, 365 days a year. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and you and I are both doing what we love, it looks like. So,
crypto never sleeps. And if we've seen the last month, it looks like block producers never sleep either. So
yeah, block producers never sleep. You guys might not sleep for a long time right now. You got a slog ahead of you, but fighting the noble cause, though.
Actually, I'm sure a lot of people want to know about that freeze that happened.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's pretty funny with the story, actually. It was like 4 a.m. here in Calgary. I was just about to go sleep. Yeah, well, we never sleep, but I was going to sleep. And then I just get people messaging me the chain stopped, obviously people are freaking out. They're like, oh, the chain has crashed. And we're like, I don't think the chain has crashed, but we look and then we see that the chain is paused. The software is built like that. So what happens if there's a critical bug or anything, like a hard failure, it's called a hard failure in the code. If a hard failure occurs, the chain just pauses. So it's not like Bitcoin where it'll just fork out and I remember back in 2013 there was bugs in Bitcoin that led to double spending because of the forks and a lot of problems. But the way EOS was made, it just stops. Mm-hmm. Now the block producers go in. First thing we did, we took an hour or two to identify the issue. We identified what it was. Then Dan came on the call. We had him fix the bug. Well, we had Block.one fix the bug. We upgraded our machines and voila, the chain was back up running without a problem. We just synced back to the last irreversible block.
Yeah, that actually worked fairly nicely. How long was the chain paused for?
Around 5 to 6 hours, I'd say.
Okay. And what happens with our transactions, the ability to do transactions paused, or do those transactions just build up and wait for the block to come live again?
No, so the way EOS works is that there's a thing called transactions as a proof of stake. It's like tap host and what that does is your transactions are only valid for a certain amount of period. There's an expiration, so you can't just put it in and then have them be executed 6 hours later. So those transactions that anyone puts in while the chain is frozen are just dropped. They don't go through. That's the whole point of having it frozen. So there's not going to be forks or random people's transactions going in when they shouldn't. It's just frozen. It's like imagine any website you go to, any service that you use, they're down for maintenance. That's the best analogy that you have. They're just down for maintenance. You go, you make yourself a coffee, you just calm down. When you're back, the chain is up.
See, I like how you're slipping in the coffee there. Just subliminal messages about EOS Cafe. Go have a coffee, maybe at an EOS Cafe shop.
Find one near you.
Yeah. Vote for this block producer and there will be one built near you, and then you can have a coffee at it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what was the, in kind of general terms, what was the bug? Can you dig a little into that, what it had to do with and what the vulnerability was?
Yeah, so the bug was related to a deferred transaction. It was a bit related to unstaking. When you unstake, then there was a problem with the way deferred transactions were working. So it took a little bit obviously to find it. We had to look through all the logs, see what actually went wrong, because the chain crashed. But it's when you have over 1 million blocks. Actually, that's another crazy point I want to touch on. When the chain paused, we were over 1 million blocks already. Wow. We actually, EOS Cafe Calgary, we were the ones who produced block number 1 million.
There you go. It's a lucky sign.
But exactly. But when when we paused, we were over 1 million blocks. And like, if you look at something like Bitcoin, like even right now, they're at like block 500 K or something. Like we were already at like twice the block height of like Bitcoin at the point that we paused. But going back, like the vulnerability was just a simple like 2-line fix. Once we identified the issue, it's identifying the issue that takes a little bit of longer time. And then we want to make sure that everyone upgrades, right? Because you don't want any single person to have that vulnerability still in their server. Everyone upgrades, we sync up. Like I'd say within 20 minutes after the bug happened, we had 60 to 70 like people in a call, like block producers in a call, like people going away. And this is like, for some people like us, like it was like 4 a.m. Like our system administrator was like up at like 4 a.m. like handling this. So it really is like like 24/7 job for block producers. Like they're on call.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you said that it's really important that all the block producers update so that so they don't have the bug in theirs. Now, is it mandatory that all the top 21, that somehow mandatory that the top 21 are updated before that goes back live? And then what about the string of the other backup block producers? How do they look at them and if they're updated or not? And will they launch a chain if the backups aren't?
I mean, the way this so there's a setting in nodes that you can set, which is like, don't let any other node connect unless they're the same version as you.
Okay.
So sometimes that is used a lot. Most of the times it's not, because like some people might have their own version, like a little bit of changes. So we like still allow for that. But here we wanted all the top 21 for sure to upgrade because there was a bug that needed to be fixed. Like that's the reason the chain paused itself. I mean, a lot of people keep saying like the block producers paused the chain. No, like there was a bug, the chain paused itself. Like, and then we went in and fixed the problem and put it back up.
That is a big difference, and that is something that a lot of, you've seen Twitter blow up with, and Reddit, is that, oh, well, if the block producers just pause the chain whenever they want, then and they can stop transactions. So that is a good point to kind of hit on, is that the chain paused itself. On that note, can block producers, if there's some sort of issue, can block producers manually pause the chain as well? Or how's that work?
Yes, they can, but they need a consensus of 15 out of the 21. So that's 2/3 plus 1. So 15 of the 21 have to agree. And this is of the top 21, right? Like all of these guys have public identities, like they're linked, like, and they'd have to publicly, like, you could go in, like the blockchain's open, you can go in and see who agreed to the pause. Like none of that is hidden.
Yeah.
So if they pause for the wrong reason, you can bet your ass like they're gonna get kicked out. Like
exactly.
So you have to be very cognizant of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's also, the incentives are built so that they need to act, because EOS is built on a community, and it's going to continue to function because the community believes in it and the community is backing it, building dApps, utilizing the coin. The minute there's some sort of foul play, or even the perception of foul play, then the community just kind of can slip out the back door, trade into other tokens, and if you guys want the chain, here, have it. So it's a touchy situation, but that's why the incentives are so nice, is because there's not really the incentive for block producers to do something nefarious, let's say, because people would just leave. People would be over it. So
and alongside that, like a lot of, like, as an individual block producer, if I put in 6 months of work into this project, and like I see this as a long-term project, which I definitely do. Why would I ruin that by making one decision that could just kick me out? Like, there's no incentive for me to do that, right? Like, it makes no sense. Like, that's the same thing I tell people. Like, I put in, like, and my entire team, like, we put in almost like 6 months of work into this. Like, we're not just gonna collude with BPs for like a one time and get kicked out. Like, there's no point in us doing that. Like, it makes sense for us to be good actors, like, and do the right thing for the network, and that's what we're going to continue doing.
How do you see that that train of thought playing out, let's say like 5 years down the road, when things become a little bit more, do you see those incentives kind of staying the same, or do you see longer term those changing?
I actually think the incentives will become even more aligned, because right now, one of the bigger problems that we're seeing is it's hard to track block producers and like their activities. But over time, what we'll see tons of accountability tools by the community, by other block producers. So once there's more accountability tools, it's even harder for block producers to like go and collude or do anything that's away from what is expected.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We in another show, I was talking about someone with accountability tools, and we talked about even possibly the ability at some point for me to create some sort of algorithm real easily that if all the block producer statistics are out there and it's really transparent, you have tons of data on the block producers, all of a sudden I could go through and pick maybe the 3 to 5 statistics that I really like, plug it into some sort of algorithm and have that just kind of vote on block producers because of their track record. But yeah, there's going to be all kinds of interesting tools, accountability tools, like you say. And that's a good point. I like that thought longer term, that we actually can maybe have more transparency, more accountability. So, all right, cool, man. So tell me a little bit about EOS Cafe Calgary. I guess the place to start would be, I know that, here, let me see here, you guys, well, I'll let you talk about it, but what kind of sets you guys apart from the other block producers? What's your...
So we have a bit of a unique structure the way we're set up. So we have two different entities. There's the block producer entity, and then there's the DAC. There's a full DAC that I'm trying to build. So the DAC, its only purpose is to build cafes and like collaboration spaces. I don't want to say only purpose, but like along those lines, like build crypto cafes, build collaboration spaces, build collaboration DApps, like all of that cool stuff. And then there's the block producer. So the block producer gives 25% of all profits right to the DAC. Like that will never be like diluted out. That's like non-negotiable. Like 25% of the profits will go to the DAC once the DAC is a full established entity. And the block producer is called EOS Cafe Calgary, while the DAC is called EOS Cafe DAC. So that's the relationship there. We didn't want to put the DAC inside the BP because we thought that building cafes should be a thing that should be like fully like decentralized in our opinion. Like we think that a DAC is like the best model to actually accomplish that. So with a DAC, pretty much everyone in the community, which I think we have on some communities where we have over like 5,000 people now for the DAC, is building these cafes in all around the world that accept EOS. Like that's the vision of the DAC. Just think about that. You walk into a cafe, you like just tap your phone because like we already have an app that takes that, right? That takes EOS. You tap the phone and it just takes EOS or Beans or whatever token that the cafe accepts. And through the power of EOS, it's accepted in 0.5 of a second. It's even faster than Visa. Like you put in your credit card and you wait like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But with EOS, you could do that in like 0.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. That was the initial promise of Bitcoin someday, or this peer-to-peer cash system from the original white paper that has been so elusive once we actually get into making it happen. But that would be cool. That would be really cool to see that happen. So how do the cafes get built out? Where does the DAC? How does the DAC? What's the logic to decide where the cafes will be built in what order, and who picks the property and things like that?
Yes. So the way the DAC system will work is it'll be the exact same way EOS referendum will work for like worker proposals.
Okay.
So all the holders has a token called Beans, which are, first of all, people ask me this all the time. So first of all, Beans will never, like the holders of Beans will never get money paid out directly to them. Like it's not like other DACs where if money is left over, it's paid out to the holders. In the EOS Cafe DAC system, money is never paid out to holders. As holders, your incentive is that you get to pretty much vote on where the money is being spent. You get to vote where it goes for like which cafe to build, which cafe should we do an upgrade with, where should we buy a new property that we can scope out for a cafe, which new collaboration DAPP should we fund, maybe even like should we find a new supplier for coffee, should we have new types of coffees, like all of those things. That's the vision, right? Like as a holder of like Beans, you could vote on that. You can you can determine the way and the direction that the DAC is going to go. That is what holding beans gives you as a holder. There's going to be a white paper coming out for the DAC in the next few weeks, and that will obviously elucidate more on that. But as a beans holder, you get to decide the direction of the DAC, and you get to, like, if there's enough beans holders, and let's say we see this right now, we have a large population of holders in Korea. Actually, our neighbor cafe, that's like one of their main blogging platforms, has almost 3,000 members. The Kakao has like 1,500 members. These are all like Korean platforms, so we have a huge community there, and they all want a cafe in like Seoul. It's like Seoul, Korea.
Yeah.
So that might be the first location. Like, we're thinking about that even more than like Calgary. Like,
very cool. Yeah, that's what a cool idea. I need to start building my Santa Cruz, California community here and bring one home. Yeah,
definitely.
how cool. So you've got the DAC and the EOS Cafe. I think that's really interesting idea. What else is the block producer up to? What else you guys doing?
Right. So the block producer, what we try to focus on the block producer end is DApps. Like, we realized this early. We saw people come in and out of the network who promised that they're not going to do anything but block production, and we don't believe in that. Like, to be down to earth, like, we believe that the real value of the network, the real value of the token, will come from the DApps. Like, it's all about the DApps in the end. Like, so we are looking to fund DApps. We are looking to build DApps. Like, we already have partnerships with multiple DApps, as you probably know. With SF EOS, that's one of the main MMORPG games that's looking to build. With Unico, we actually moved them over from Ethereum to EOS.
Okay.
They do crypto collectibles. So think kind of like CryptoKitties, but on a larger scale for anyone.
Maybe using those non-fungible tokens for that.
Yes, for the standard. We like, in collaboration with them, we actually put out a standard called EOSIO.NFT, like non-fungible tokens.
Nice.
And that's built on EOS. It's like a standard on EOS. So that's one of the two partnerships that we have right now. We're looking into other partnerships that can't be disclosed right now, but that's the track that we're going towards. And as you've seen, like, also there's DApps, but there's also like public adoption. Like, that's the second thing. Like, we do a bit of public adoption through cafes, because obviously, like, if you go into a cafe, maybe you can pay with beans. You're like, what are beans? Like, you've never used crypto, and you're like, oh, maybe I can use beans. Like, that's public adoption. But also tools. Like, from the start, we built like a key validator, key generator. We have a paper wallet, like one of the only paper wallets that really exists for EOS. We have and then we made the registration fallback tool. Like, there's only scatter in our tool right now. If you forgot to register, like, EOSKey.io, that's the only other option that you have. And we're continuing to build that. Right now we're working on a block explorer. It's just a progression of these things, and then we're going to continue building these tools for token holders.
Yeah, well, that's great. The tools are going to be a huge, that's kind of laying the groundwork for other things to be built on top of it. How's the dev tools scene coming along? I know that there's been some. I mean, it's so nascent right now that there's not a lot of dev tools, but how do you see that developing in the coming months?
So we saw, actually, from our devs, we heard a lot of good things about Tokenica.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Tokenica.
Yeah.
Their EOS factory was a pleasure to use. Like, you download the node system, and then you just download their EOS factory with like one line of code. It just boots up the node. Another line of code, you can shut it down. So you can write like unit tests really easily. I'm originally a Solidity developer, so like, I've used like the Truffle framework. Truffle's really big in Ethereum for that. And what they're building with EOS Factory, I could see it blowing up. Like, I could see that being the go-to. And I hope they stay elected, and I hope they continue working on the EOS Factory program, because that's really good for dev tooling. That's actually, you raise a good point. Like, we haven't considered that too much, but there really is a need to actually bring more developers in too, because when we bring new developers in, onboarding is one of like the longest processes. Like having them understand how to actually work with EOS. It's there's definitely an onboarding process, and I think as developer tools are built, that could really be shortened.
How's the transition as a dev from something like from Solidity to EOS? Is there a lot of crossover because of the smart contract knowledge, or is it just two different things?
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to move over.
Good answer. Okay.
Really though, like you deploy a contract on Ethereum, like you made one bug, now you're like, shit, like I can't fix that. I guess I gotta like make a new contract, move everything over. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's still obviously problems with EOS that are being fixed. Like right now, there's no migration. There's no proper migration system. Like if you have data on one contract, it's hard to migrate data. But you can upgrade contracts, right? Like that's one of the biggest things I like. Like if you were charging a 10% tax on your product, and let's say you're making tons of money now, you only want to charge a 5% tax, you can like change that. Like even if it's hard coded in, you can just upgrade the contract. Like things like that are very, very, very simple in EOS. And that's one of the things, like what we saw with the freeze, you'd never see that on Ethereum, right? Like even if those guys lost like $200 million, they'd be like, oh, we can't do anything. We're going to call it parity 2.0. But like with EOS, we stop it, we fix it, and we keep going. Like that's how these things should be. It shouldn't be like, hey, we can't fix it. Like, sorry.
Yeah. This is especially when everything is so new right now, when everyone's learning how to code smart contracts. A lot of people are making smart contracts and they're really new to it. And it's so many of them end up having little things that they need to go back and rewrite another contract to fix. So especially in these learning stages before there's real experts with hundreds of smart contracts under their belt doing this. That's going to be, it's going to be interesting to see how this all develops here. What do you think when you look at block producers? You mentioned Tokenika, and there's a lot of them out there that are offering different things. What do you think the top maybe 3 things that you look for, you think is most important for block producers to provide?
What are the top 3 things we think?
Like if people are voting, what should they be taking into account?
I think one of the main things that we've seen, and we see this reflected, like especially in the block producers, is their international presence. Like even if a block producer is doing the best thing they ever could, like they're creating all these dApps, they're just killing it, right? But if they're only doing all of this in English, they're limiting themselves. They're limiting the EOS ecosystem. Only like 20, 30%, maybe 35% of all token holders can speak English properly or read it or understand it. What about those other 60% of token holders? Like what are they going to use? Like you're not trying to create a tool for that, right? That's why we see a lot of, like, if you just look at the list right now, like EOS Canon, like we've been working with EOS Canon from the start, and they contacted us actually, and they've done this with, it's not exclusive, they've done this with a lot of block producers. They help you get onto Chinese social media platforms. They help you, they translate things for you, like for free, just like to help you out to reach the international community. And that's really, really important in my eyes. So that's one of the internationalization is one of the things. And second, we touched on this a little, is like for tokens. You see like EOS Authority doing this. EOS Authority killed it. Like I think their model was awesome. Like go in, create the best tools possible for token holders, and guess what? You get elected in. Like that's it's like the tools market for you. Like I love that strategy. I think it could really be useful for other block producers too. And what would be a third? A third thing that I actually that I think will become big is partnerships with dApps. Like a lot of these big block producers, once they start moving like real businesses over to EOS, or even just like projects that are in businesses to EOS, you will see that being really, really useful for the ecosystem. I think like even if you move a small project from like a company, it shows the use case on the blockchain. Like you do a use case, next thing you know, it's just like hundreds of companies that are doing use cases on the blockchain, and that will just blow up. It's going to be an exponential growth once that happens. I'm looking forward to more block producers working with businesses like in their local area to actually promote EOS.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but there's actually the opportunity to go out as a block producer and recruit local businesses or mid-sized businesses and bring them onto the blockchain. That's a interesting advocacy route. That'd be cool to see. Speaking of DApps, just it popped into my head. Do you have any idea what Dan's got coming for us? What kind of DApp is looming on the horizon? That's like something I'm interested in.
Well, obviously he has the Steemit app, but the Steemit 2.0. But I've talked to some people who know what is going on, but they're all under NDAs. But the one thing that I've heard in common is like, you guys are not prepared. Like the token holders are not prepared for what's coming.
Is that so? Oh.
So it's a lot of excitement. Like whatever I hear from these people, that's the common theme I hear. So. Just trust that you're not prepared.
I like that. I love it. Good. We'll build the mystery. How about a timeline? You got any? Are we talking like a year from now, 6 months, a quarter?
I think they want to release their first big app before the end of the year for sure. So there'll be that. And another thing is you'll see a lot of projects coming in the or announcements in the next 2 months from VC partners. There's some stipulations that I can't go into there, but there were some things holding them back, and now they're going to go full force. They're going to go full force.
That's great. That's good. That the VCs putting money into DApps is going to be huge. What about the worker proposals? Where are we at on that at this point, and how's that looking?
Yeah, the worker, that's actually an issue that we block producers have been really talking a lot about, thinking about, especially with like the arbitration forum and other like stakeholders, is we don't have the contracts right now to actually do like the voting for worker proposals. So right now, all that fund is just going to go to a contract that holds the money for worker proposals. And that's going to build up, like even like that could be like over 100 million, like over a few months of money just like held in a contract. And we block producers don't want to actually just like we're not just going to take money from it and be like, hey, this service needs it, like this for public good. Like that money has to be done through all the token holders like voting on it pretty much, right? But there's the other problem, like do we really want like $100-200 million just sitting for months and not being used? Like that money could be used to exponentially grow the system. But so there's like a debate there, obviously, because it is a very like, it's a question of morality, right? Because you don't want to be taking funds that are technically like, as block producers, technically, like especially through the Constitution, although the Constitution doesn't really talk about worker proposals, we don't really have a right to those funds. Like those funds are for like, if the voters, if the EOS population thinks we own it, sure, like we have a right to it. But if they don't vote for it explicitly, then we have like no right to it. So I think once we have once we actually have more money as block producers, we'll see more collaborative effort to actually speed up these referendum contracts, so all of the EOS holders can vote on it. But I think honestly, guys, like that venture is probably more profitable than block producers. Like if you come in with a big proposal that sounds sound, you have the people behind it, you could get funded for like millions of dollars on the spot. Like so like get ready, start making proposals, like start drafting proposals.
Yeah. And who do those worker proposals go into some sort of community portal where the token holders are going to end up voting on that? Is that right?
Yes. One of the, let's see if I can actually find this really quick. One of the really good cryptos that does this is called Smart Cash. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. So Smart Cash has this called the Hive, like Smart Hive. and they have a really good platform online already. If you ever go check it out, like I think that's what EOS is going to be like. Like proposals come in, and then anyone who holds smart cash can vote on them right on the spot. Everything is public. Every single proposal that makes it, you can see the result. Then you can, I think they do like follow up every like month, or every 3 months, every 6 months, to see where the project's at, and disperse funds according to meeting milestones. Because if it's a $10 million project, you obviously want to set like 10 milestones or something, right? And then like fund like $1 million at a time, not just give them 10 million and then like you see an exit scam of some sort.
Yeah. The accountability is going to be really important. So it sounds like the block producers are probably starting to get paid now, and also this worker proposal fund is starting to fill up or gain EOS. Now, at what point are the block producers, you think, going to be kind of liquid or be covering their costs so that they're able to start doing these extracurricular activities? Is that a few months off, or is that close to now, or what's that look like?
Most block producers I've talked to that are not VC funded, obviously, they're trying to build a buffer right now for at least a few weeks, because they don't want this like token volatility to just bring them to like bankruptcy, right? I mean, obviously a lot of block producers have been self-funded so far. Like EOS Cafe is like 100% self-funded. So we ourselves are building a buffer right now too. And then we want to start doing more hires, more like funding DAPPs and all of that cool stuff. But I don't think it's going to be a few months. I think it's going to be a few weeks, if anything, of a buffer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. It's seeing how all the block producers need to manage their cash flow is going to be something that sets block producers apart as well. That's a big part of running a block producer candidacy, I'm sure, is managing the funds. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone does that. Oh, you may have cut out there. Oh, you cut out a little bit.
I think we cut out.
Oh, welcome back. So you mentioned my hat. I thought that was kind of interesting. My hat, my crypto friends, is from near Banff in Canada. I went up there with my grandparents actually, and stopped in this little wood cabin. It was an outpost, and they were selling leather goods, and I bought this hat, and apparently I picked it up about an hour from where Saeed's from. So
we're from Calgary, so Banff is just like west of Calgary on the map, and it's about like an hour and a half drive away. It's beautiful. If you guys ever come down, if we host a conference or a hackathon here in Calgary, it's a very beautiful place. It's there's Lake Louise, Kananaskis. It's really just like a marvel to see. They're like postcard level like photos that you see in person there.
Yeah, those mountains are stunning too. They're so tall. It's just mind blowing when you see them. It's like, amazing. Well, if I ever lose my hat, then I'm gonna have to come up and get a coffee at an EOS Cafe and try to replace it. So we'll see how that goes.
You got to come to the Stampede. It's like the biggest outdoor show. Happens once a year.
Okay.
In the world. Biggest outdoor
world.
Yeah.
Wow. Dang. And what is it? Like a concert, you're saying?
No. It's it's called the Stampede. It's more of like a cowboy focused like event with like all of like the Wild West events,
like roping and like
and like all the like bull focused and like all of those cool stuff.
Wow. Well, yeah, I know they got some serious cowboys up there in Canada for sure. I'm like I have cowboys in my family, but I'm not a cowboy myself, but I'll represent the hat, but let's get back into EOS a little for you guys here. What do you think we've kind of glossed over, or what have we not touched on quite enough about EOS Cafe, or about what's going on with EOS right now in general?
I think one of the things that we have glossed over, especially for EOS, is the amount of hate we're gonna get from other blockchains. Honestly, like we see this a lot already. Like you go to Reddit, and I think almost like half the posts are from other people just bashing on EOS. Like there's a lot of just misinformation going around. Like you just look at the wording. Like there was a bit of like a wording problem. Like so what happened? Like going back, I keep going back to the event, but I think it's very recent. It's really important. Like that freeze that happened. Like we had emergency protocols obviously in place, but like we had to make things on the spot. We pretty much like we EOS Cafe Calgary, we created those 3 channels that you saw, like those mainnet status channels, like in English, Korean, and Chinese. Like we were getting live translations done. Kevin from EOS New York was writing them up. And this is not to discredit, like there's a lot more people that don't get mentioned. Like you look at HK EOS, you look at EOS Tribe, and I'm probably missing more people because I was more focused on that than in the call. Like those were, and Michael Yates from EOS DAC.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 were really like crucial in getting like the network back up. And see, I keep missing and Eric from EOS Sweden, or at their SW/Eden now. But those guys are really crucial too. So like this is such a collaborative effort, right? Like let's say we and Kevin, EOS New York, we're working on like the PR side. At the same time, there's these people fixing the issue. Like, and I feel like a lot of times these people who are fixing the issue more like in the back don't get the recognition that they deserve, because these calls obviously can't always be publicized. Like they can't be always shared to the public like on this spot. Although I would personally like to see them released publicly later, like as like a reflection on the disaster response.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, like HK EOS, EOS Tribe, EOS Sweden, EOS DAC, like these guys were really crucial in getting the network back up. Like they identified the issue, well, with Block.one, obviously, got everyone synced back up. And as I said, like especially I was looking at EOS Tribe, and they're placed pretty low, like for the amount of technical chops and community work they've done on the network.
Mm-hmm.
I think they deserve much more recognition for the work they've done.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
as well. Hong Kong.
Yeah, Eugene and Steve Floyd over there at EOS Tribe have done some big things, and they were kind of instrumental in pointing out some of the launch things that needed to be changed for launch. But yeah, they got a good team over there, a lot of technical chops.
Yeah.
You brought up something interesting that I think I want to dig into a little bit. The calls that go. I have 2 questions. Is you got 70 people on this call, and kind of how's that run? Who runs it? Is Dan kind of like leading the show, and then people chime in? And then the second question is about the recording of the calls. Are they recorded, and what is the chance of people getting to listen in on that sometime?
Mm-hmm. So the main thing, well, starting off, Dan does not lead any of this. Like Dan is, he's a participant. He comes in as an expert witness. Block.one is a consultant, if anything, to the chain. Mm-hmm. And Dan was not there for even the first hour or so.
Okay.
We had David Moss in there, but David Moss is not a Block.one employee. He just knows a little bit more about the inner workings of the system. But we got in there. HK EOS, I think, organized the call, but the way it's run is it's not just one person running it. In the launch groups, it was like EOS Dublin managing it, because those were even bigger calls. Like those were like 200 people calls. Those were huge. But this one, we're at 60 to 70 people. I think we had like 20, 30 people on video, and it was just like taking turns. I think is the way to say it, like taking turns of sharing information of what's going on and debugging it. And then going with recording, it's tough. There are at points information that's like private, that might be private, that might be exploited, especially in the moment. So it's wise to not make these like live, but I don't see a reason for these calls to not be recorded and shared later on, like in time, maybe like 24 hours after the disaster happens, to share this and like have the public actually look at how the response was done. And that's one of the things, like as I said, like a lot of these people, especially like the blog producers I mentioned, they don't get the recognition, right? But like if you share these calls, people will be able to see who's actually like leading these efforts, who's bringing the chain back up.
Yeah, and I think maybe even more importantly, the full transparency, because right now you mentioned Reddit and Twitter, and there's a lot of, hate towards this thought that people could be involved with a blockchain is kind of what it comes down to. It's not the core Bitcoin or Ethereum where nothing can ever be changed, and that's something that if there's things happening, conversations happening behind the scenes, then it can add to this scary thought that these people are kind of putting out there. So I think at EOS as a whole, the more we could be like, hey, there's people working on it, but they're actually working on it. They're not like sitting around a table planning how to take over the world, So, so I think putting those calls out like, hey, here's what we did, it would be really to the benefit of the EOS community. And so however that ends up working out, I would maybe pay attention to that, and I'd be happy to help if I can in any way as far as getting those calls out to people. So
no, we agree. Like I think our team would definitely agree with that, especially like in the future we'll have pause decisions, right? Like if there's a bug, not always will there always be like a hard fail and the software might just turn off. Like there might be situations where, I mean, if you look the way the launch worked, like there had to be a pause so the whole thing could be validated, right? In the same way, if let's say some huge critical vulnerability is found but it's not being exploited, we might have to pause the chain and wait for a fix from Block.one or some other party to come in. But we don't want to just like pause this chain and then we're going to face the same hate, the same comments from other people, other like outside the ecosystem. So one of the best ways to, as you said, is to overcome that is to actually record all the calls where these discussions happen, like where the pause decision actually happens, and see and then people can like look at these calls and see why this pause happened. It wasn't just like 15 block producers around the table saying, hey, let's just pause, like we don't want this transaction to go through, let's just pause the chain, right? Like once voters and everyone else can see the thought process, it really lowers this thought that all the block producers are colluding and they're trying to take over the network.
Yeah, and especially in the instance that you're talking about where it's a proactive pause to the chain, then there's really this possibility, this thought that there's a possibility of something nefarious, like, oh, they paused the chain, why? And then, EOS puts out a public service announcement, this is why we paused the chain, but, we've all had public service announcements from the government about why they did stuff in the past, people don't believe that anymore. So, I think that'd be rad. I think that's will be important for EOS, cool. That's really interesting. I hadn't, dug into the calls with anyone before. I hadn't really got into that, so I think that's some good new information people appreciate. It's cool. What other things are going on that's new in the last few days for EOS?
EOS has been a little quiet, I think. All the there's like holidays in China, and then there's Father's Day in the Western world. So it's been a little quiet from what I've seen, but I think most people like are either getting their stake now like unstaked or almost getting it unstaked, because it takes 3 days to unstake, right? So I think we're past the 3 days since activation, but we'll be seeing that soon. People will be having their entire EOS moved around, and exchanges opening up. I think that's when everything just goes like starts, when exchanges are open. It's like a full blockchain now. You have exchanges supporting it, You have all the contracts working. You have pretty much a full blockchain that's working now.
Mm-hmm. What is the EOS Finex, the story with the EOS Finex chain, or exchange?
That's not going to be ready for a few months, like the decentralized exchange on EOS. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I believe Bitfinex even gave the timeline of like August to October or something. Like,
Okay. And what are your thoughts on something like Bitfinex being a block producer? Do you think there's room in the space for that, or that we should push back against that, or how do you feel about that?
I think there's 100% room for them. I
Mm-hmm.
think they need to be like held to the same standards though. That's one of the things we actually saw recently was two or three block producers not updating their like BP JSONs and like appearing as like gray on EOSnetworkmonitor.io, which is a great website. Plug crypto lines, but like those things need to be on, like they need to be on top of it, right? Like it can't be like it's hard to say because all the three top 21 block producers that did not have that info updated were all exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it makes you think like, are they not putting in the same amount of effort? Are they not being vigilant? um I think that's as far as I can say right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the talks I've had with EOS Dublin was we don't have enough data right now.
Yeah.
We don't have enough data points. Like all the block producers have claimed their rewards like twice so
Mm-hmm.
far. Like this is a very new chain. Like, and that's why we will see. I'd be surprised if we didn't see any more bugs. Like we're going to be very proactive in making sure we don't see any bugs, but that's how software works, man. Like software does not come bug free.
Mm-hmm.
But the way Block.one has created this chain, the way we're working, we're going to fix those bugs without anyone losing their funds. And that's what we're aiming towards.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you make about how new this is, and we don't have that many data points right now. It's a lot of ideas of what are going to happen and kind of promises in a direction that all these block producers are going. But until people have money and they start spending it, that's when, okay, what's really happening here, and we start collecting some data points. So I think that was a nice measured response from him about the exchanges. We need more data before we see what's going on. So yeah, I'm on board with that idea. Anything else you'd like to add here? We've got looks like about 5 minutes left, and we can kind of talk about our last couple of topics here if you have anything exciting.
Have anything exciting?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, have to plug our blog producer. So our blog producer is EOS Cafe Calgary, as everyone knows. In voting, it's EOS Cafe Block. We are currently number 9, and as you've probably all heard, we will continue working to develop tools, DAPPs. And one of the things that we want to start doing is bringing these businesses onto EOS. Like we want to make this thing go mainstream. We want to make EOS go mainstream. We want big businesses, small businesses alike working on this chain. And it's not going to happen with block producers just sitting down. Like obviously, like people will reach out to them, but not at the same level. If your block producer candidate is not reaching out actively to people, like they're missing out on opportunities. And that's something that actually brings another really good point. Like I don't see enough people like holding block producers like accountable. Like one of the things, one of our holders, actually one of our BP friends, one of our fellow BPs like reached out, and also token holders reached out. We were missing some information on earlier on our main website, like eoscafecalgary.com. We had disclosed our percentages, like our company percentages earlier in the Steemit post, but it wasn't directly on our website. So they contacted us, they held us accountable, which we really appreciate, right? And we had that up, like it's up on eoscafecalgary.com now. So like you guys as token holders need to hold block producers accountable. Like go into their telegrams, contact them directly. If you have any issues, like say it instead of making posts about them. It's better to actually go and be proactive and like go contact them and get the issue resolved, because that's how we're going to build a chain to be better, like by collaborating, not by calling out people and being like putting them on the spot. You can do that if you contact them and they don't give you like a proper response. But at least make the effort as like a token holder, as a steward of the ecosystem, to reach out to people and reach out to block producers and hold them accountable. I think that's my message to token holders. Like, you have the power. Even as a single person, you can hold multiple block producers accountable.
Yeah, and that's what I was just going to say, is that with this governance model, and with block producers are very receptive to information and suggestions, and just a normal token holder, someone like me, could contact them really easily in Telegram or on Twitter and present something, and they're not going to probably not ignore it. You know, they're going to take some action, give you a real response, look into it, and because everything's so transparent. And so people should appreciate the amount of power that they have as far as interaction with the chain, and you have a say. And that's different from what we're used to, because in the States we have a representative democracy, and if I were to contact my congressperson and ask them for something, it has little to no effect along with my vote. But in something like EOS, like, we can personally have effects if we have something legitimate to change. So you have a responsibility, EOS token holders, and that's one of the beautiful parts about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and this change, is this personal responsibility, this accountability, this which leads to freedom of self. So
exactly, 100% freedom. And this is not a pipe dream. Like, I see this every single day. Just yesterday, saw EOS Gravity, their BP.json was not fixed. A person contacted me. They're like, what do you think about that? I'm like, you have the power to do it. I'm like, go to their Telegram, message them if that's the problem to you.
Yeah. I
literally saw them message it. They got a response in like half an hour. They're like, we're working on fixing this. Within another hour, it was fixed. Like, that's the level of transparency we're talking about with block producers here. Yeah. So just a normal token holder went to their Telegram, messaged them. He fixed he made them accountable and fixed their problem.
Yeah. Can you explain to people why JSON is important and why that's important to have that up?
Yes, so bp.json, you can actually check what it looks like. If you go to just like eoscafecalgary.com/bp.json, it's a file that has like auxiliary information about BP. So it has like their name, their location, URLs to their logos. It's just a common format that like any of these websites can use to present information about block producers. So it's really important that all of these websites like Scatter, EOS Portal, like EOS Network Monitor, they all use these files to show information about BPs in like a controlled and like reproducible manner. So it's really important for all block producers to be like sharing this information and have it be accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a great explanation. Thank you. Well, to summarize, EOS Cafe Calgary is the block producer. EOS Cafe DAC is the Decentralized Autonomous Corporation that's going to get 25% of the block proceeds to build cafes where people can meet up and do crypto and pay with EOS or beans. EOS Cafe Calgary, the block producer, is big on kind of this community outreach type of, funding DApps, but also reaching out into the community to businesses and trying to bring people onto the EOS blockchain. So trying to, get adoption, I would put it. What else do you have to add to that description, the kind of overall description, you guys?
We're gonna start poaching Ethereum apps. We're gonna start moving it. Like, we've already done it with one, but like that's a reproducible thing. Like, we're gonna start moving Ethereum apps to EOS.
That is absolutely a reproducible thing, and what a serious target market right there. I mean, if you ask me, they've already got, they're already built on Ethereum. That's It's perfect. There's a whole bunch of DApps out there waiting to be talked to by our block producers. If anyone has a fantastic idea or an in at a Ethereum DApp, then send them to Saeed and let's bring them onto the team. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate having you on, Saeed. I learned some cool stuff from you. I love the project that you guys are up to and the work you guys are doing for all of us in the EOS community and the transparency.
Also, if you guys want to reach us, like we've made we were using a common channel before Telegram with the DAC and BP. We made a new BP focused channel with only BP info. It's at EOS Cafe Calgary. That's for the Telegram. And if you want to, you can find me personally there and message me. Like, I'll respond to you for sure.
Okay, at EOS Cafe Calgary is the Telegram. We'll put that in the links. Where other places can they find you? What's the website? EOSCafeCalgary.com.
Okay. Same thing on Twitter. And Steemit. Pretty much all of them are EOS Cafe Calgary. And then the DAC can be found at the EOS Cafe marks.
Perfect. Well, there you have it, my crypto friends. Any last things to add here, Saeed?
No, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And it was a lot of fun. We actually, I'm not sure if we went into this, but we actually met at Tulip conference.
Yes,
so
we did.
Shout out to Tulip. We had a really heartfelt moment on the night of the launch.
That was so cool. Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah, and just, I mean, we tell people about that real quick. We had a lot of the block producers, and then people like Nathan James and Phil Messner were there, and about 20 people gathered around this table right after they came to the 100% consensus about how to launch the chain, and went around the circle, and everyone shared their stories about basically why they're involved with blockchain, kind of EOS, and just it. What was so cool about that is how much this means to people, because this isn't just some business or some startup or the new internet kind of thing. It's a powerful emotional movement, and it was cool to hear people's stories about what it meant. So
it's a revolution for sure.
Exactly, revolution is the word. And and so we were there that night, and for the people that were there, it's kind of a night that we will always remember for sure. It was really cool. Very cool. So, well, cheers, Saeed. A pleasure to see you again, my friend. And good luck to you guys. And I'd love to have you on again in the future. And until next time, my crypto friends, we'll see you around.
Take care, crypto friends.
Money is not the prime asset in life. Time is, and your time is.